In vibroacoustic therapy, we are blending music with the perception of vibration.
No way.
There are several studies about the frequencies and about the effect of sound in our organism. You activate the parasympathetic nervous system very easily. And that is what we need to start, for example, a relaxation. Because if you are always awakened and very, with your rational mind, you will not find nothing. You will find words and more problems. When we are all the time with our telephones, we become more stupid. There's always, it's like you are eating all the time. Eating. You need to digest. And yes, some healing session, it can be a digestion. It's not magic. Healing is it's a process, and it's related to the interaction between you, the sound, between you and the others, between you and your therapist. If you very regularly go to do these different ceremonies, it's like familiar. It's a familiar place, so you can start interacting with this place. It's dynamic. It's not like the same place for everybody, because it depends if you are used to that or not. It's like drugs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like drugs.
Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Beyond the Bubble. And it's a great pleasure to have here a friend and someone with a very special background, coming all the way from Argentina, who's living in Brussels and has been here for quite a few years, with a very unique, very special profession and background, which is music therapy. And beside that, he's an innovator, he is an entrepreneur, and he's someone who facilitates sound baths, which is a fascinating thing, an experience I also had myself. And those are topics which we're going to go deep into. So with that, Jorge, thanks for being here.
Hey, hello, Andras. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Where to begin? Maybe let's just begin of how you ended up in Belgium. So you're coming all the way from Argentina. And what's the path that led you here?
Okay, so when I arrived in Belgium in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, it was because of the kids. Because in Argentina, the school was totally closed, and we didn't see the end of the tunnel. So we decided with my wife to come here with the kids, and we find a spot in the school very, very quickly and easy. And that was the reason. But I was with my company there. My company was starting to grow. And it's very interesting because when you know about companies and you start something, you put a lot of energy and it takes time. And when finally it started to work, I left Argentina. So it was quite interesting to arrive here with my company growing and with all the team there in the middle of the pandemic. So it was really a long trip.
That company is the do I say pillow company? I think it does a disservice to it, right? I don't want to
company.
I don't want to devalue it. It's a very special breathing device, right?
Yeah,
tell me.
It's a music therapy company.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's my company is called Vibracustica, and it started with my school. I created a school of sound therapy and vibroacoustic therapy in Buenos Aires. So people from different disciplines came there to learn about how to use sound in their therapeutic work.
That's the big picture. The
big
broad,
picture. It started with
baseline.
a school of sound therapy and vibroacoustic therapy school. Yeah, and then was very interesting because people arrived. I started the trainings in 2010, and Argentina is a very, very sportive and complicated country because you have to deal with a lot of crises all the time, and it's very difficult to planify because it's the rules changes all the time. So it's really it's a sport to be an entrepreneur in Argentina, and yeah, and when I started with the school, I had a difficulty. It was that the import was very difficult, and I was teaching how to use singing bowls, for example,
which we have
which are
right here, which you're going to demonstrate at some point.
And the thing is that I wasn't able to import the singing bowls, so I started to produce myself. And so that's how I started with producing musical instruments for music therapy and for sound healing approaches. And I started with producing the singing bowls, so I had to find somebody in Argentina who produced singing bowls that are normally produced in India. So I met a Bolivian family in the northwest of Argentina who were handcrafting like objects, like very similar to the singing bowl, but the main thing was not the sound. So I met them, and I say, because I thought that the guy who will create this object will be able to produce a singing bowl, and that's how we started to work together. We worked together for a lot of years, and we produced a lot of bowls in Argentina. But then I also started to produce another tools, another instruments that were used with my students. I like to create things. I love it. I love to imagine this is for a sound therapy session. What do you need? And what kind of experience, of immersive experience you want to create for the clients? And then I imagine instruments and I create them. Yeah, so I created, for example, the samaphone. That is an amazing instrument that it have tubular in aluminum, and then you hit them, and it's turning in a circle, like it makes the Doppler effect of the sound and movement, and this is really interesting to when you work with altered states of consciousness. And I started to sell the instruments for my students because they needed for practice, and so I started like this, and it was very natural for me to create an e-commerce site, and so my company in Argentina sells musical instruments for sound therapy practice, for people who do meditation, yoga teachers, sound healers, and also I do the trainings. I train people in the method of using sound.
Of all of that.
Yeah.
But when I said, not very generously, a pillow, so tell me about how you landed on creating the special, well, for lack of a better term, that relaxation device which you launched as well. And then we're going to go back all to the different ways why these work, but also to understand what is sound therapy in the first place. But let's just finish this this thread first.
My expertise is vibroacoustic therapy. Vibroacoustic therapy is a method in music therapy. In Argentina, a music therapy, it's not a course that you do in 1 week or in 2 weekend seminar. It's a discipline that you need to go to the university. It's like 5 years. So my expertise was vibroacoustic therapy. That is the use of sound vibration. And it's a methodology created in Norway by Olaf Schille, and the concept is that there are devices that transfer sound energy to the body, and so I didn't invented the technology. What I did was to adapt for the sound therapy session. And Olaf Schille, he created in the 80s, and the beginning of the 80s, different devices that were like beds with woofers, and the customers lie on the bed, and he transfers frequencies between 20 to 120 hertz and he combined it with music. So the pillow that you say that I create the pillow, I adapted the same technology, but with the resources that we have now. We don't have to be, it's not a big bed, it's like a very small pillow with a transducer inside, and it's connected with your telephone, and from the telephone you can choose the frequency that you are going to transfer to the body. Yeah, and so the pillow is very interesting because it's very easy to use. You can transfer sound vibration in a very easy way, because you just have to have an app, choose the program, and that's it. There are several studies about the frequencies and about the effect of sound on our system and our organism. And what we see is that it creates very quickly parasympathetic. You activate the parasympathetic nervous system very easily. And that is what we need to start, for example, a relaxation. It's the beginning, okay? So people who are very, they cannot relax, they are in sympathetic activation. And so the vibration, the sound, what it's going to do is will calm the nervous system in a very effective and easy way. So that and this is very easy and very useful, because people are not used to relax very easily. It's even for people who try to do meditation, they say, "Oh, I have anxiety. I need to do meditation." Okay.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And so the sound and the sonic energy, it allows you to enter another state of consciousness in a very effective way.
How is it different from me putting a relaxing sound or even a meditation music or the very same, very calming sounds on Spotify or in a normal speaker versus having it through a dedicated device which emits those frequencies?
Okay, so when you listen to music, okay, you are listening, you are experiencing what we know about music, but in vibroacoustic therapy, we are blending music with the perception of vibration. So
perception?
Yes, because you perceive the vibration and you feel it. And it's
okay, so it's not an illusion, it's a
physical thing.
It's a physical thing.
It's a physical thing. If you want, I can put water on the singing bowls, on this singing bowl, and you can see how the sound affects the water. And vibration, it's going to create movement inside, and you are going to feel something very particular. So when the music that you use for meditation is very useful, because our mind is always going to with our thoughts, like in a hamster wheel, like we are used to think, or we are overstimulated, and music helps us to focus. So this is really effective. But when you add the feeling of vibration in your body, it will create another door to enter in another state of consciousness.
So tell me more about that. What is another state of consciousness? So is it pure relaxation and I'm able to just simply take my monkey mind off the hamster wheel, to use all these animals, and really just relax? Or is it something, a more meditative state, more of an alpha state, or some other way of perceiving the world?
Yeah, okay, so it's a very good question, and there's a lot of different levels of a state of consciousness. Yeah, so it depends of the mental activity. For example, if you close your eyes and you start to feel your body, you're going to start with the alpha waves. on your brain activity. Yeah, but then, for example, if you lie down and you start listening to music, relaxing music, maybe you will start to have like different impulses, and you start to have images and experiencing mental representations, and that can be images, sensations, and so in an alpha state, for example, is when you start perceiving your own body, you start perceiving how you breathe, and so you enter you start to slow down your mental activity. Okay, so then you have another levels. For example, theta and delta. Theta is like this moment when you're going to bed, for example, and you start reading a book, and then you start to fall asleep, but you are not sleeping yet. People who does sound therapy or sound healing session, they always experience this kind of sensation where you feel like you are sleeping, but you are not sleeping. Okay, and then you have a delta, that is when you are fully sleeping. Okay, and then delta is more you repair your cells, and but in this theta state, that is before you're sleeping, there are a lot of things that are happening at the same time. And for example, when you are in theta state, this is the moment when you have the best insights. For example, you have when you wake up at 5 in the morning, and then or this first moment that you still being like quite sleepy, but you are very conscious.
That you know that, so you're aware of being asleep, and yet you still have a certain consciousness. Yeah.
Exactly. And this moment, that is, we are in theta state normally. This is the moment when you have this insight. I have to do this. I know I have to do this. I feel I have to. I have a situation in my work, and or I have a very good idea. This is the moment when you are in theta state.
Clarity, no?
Clarity, coherence, exactly. And so in a sound therapy session, you experience these states. But altered state of consciousness is a very complex topic, because there are also a lot of therapeutic approach in these states of consciousness. For example, in hypnosis, you enter in this theta state, and for example, there are practices that, for example, the Sufis were doing centuries ago. For example, the Sama. You know what is the Sama? The Sama is this practice that the whirling dervishes did with Rumi, and they are listening to music, dervish music with ney flute and drums, and they are doing this dance of turning and turning and turning. Yeah,
Getting into some trance.
They enter in a trance state. So this is an altered state of consciousness. So with sound and with sound vibration, we can access to these states of consciousness. And the thing is that we live in a binary world. We learn in school, we are a binary mindset.
In which sense?
That we are very rational. Yeah, we learn to be rational, and then this kind of approaches with sound is multidimensional mindset, because you start to enter in another state, and you develop intuition, for example, you develop clarity, and mental clarity. It's not about being very rational. So, for example, I encourage people when you have to find a solution to something. So, what if you need to find a solution? People, what are going to do? They are trying to find the solution rationally, and there is another way. So, my proposition is go to a sound healing session. but work with this intention. I need to find a solution to this. And in a sound therapy or a sound healing session, you will access another state of consciousness that will give you clarity. And it's very useful if you want to unlock this clarity, to calm your nervous system. You need to calm it. Because if you are always awakened and very, like with your rational mind, you will not find nothing. You will find words and more problems, and maybe you will have some rational solutions, but sometime you need to find another solution.
So how does sound vibration help in that regard? So what does it do that other tools or methods or circumstances do not?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of tools, and there are a lot of tools that are very useful. For example, breathing is very useful. When you do, for example, breath work, you know about breath work, there is these techniques with your breathing, you also access these states of consciousness. And so sound, what it will create movement inside you. Yeah, and you will be it make it easier. For example, to unlock your breathing, you put a pillow. You open your chest. I don't know how to explain it.
So basically, you lie on your back in a position which helps you open up your thorax and your chest and your breathing.
This is one possibility.
Yeah,
it's not. I don't mean this is always like this, but you can use it like this. Okay, and the main thing of the vibration is the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system is very quick, very easy.
So the calming effect
is
great.
Yes. And if you combine vibration with another instruments like the singing bowls, it's a perfect combination, because the singing bowls they have a particular sound that is a pulsating sound. If you want, I can play.
Yes, we'll get to it. Actually, why not try it now to see? Yeah. Let's see how the audio picks up, but to see how that the sound waves and the rhythm of the sound waves come across.
Hypnotic.
Okay, so if I get into a trance state here, we'll keep that in the final recording.
Can you hear that?
Yes, it's like
one,
like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So what does it do to me? It sends me a signal. It tells my brain waves to synchronize with this rhythm.
Your brain waves are going to start synchronizing with these waves. Of course, you need to close your eyes, breathe. It's not like I'm thinking another thing. Oh no, I hear the sound, I am hypnotized. No, you need to prepare.
Yeah, you need to already be in that sort of state of mind.
Yes.
To do that. And what does the bigger one do? Is it's different frequencies? Or
yeah, the bigger is it's lower frequencies.
This has exactly the same frequency or sound as my parents or in my dad's working room. There is this grandfather's clock, you know, so it's exactly this when it does. It's on the clock. The same.
Yeah, and what is interesting is if you put water inside the bowl, this bowl transfers the low frequency, and then you can see the effect of the lower frequencies on the
water itself.
Yeah. So it's really interesting when you use a tool like the Viset Pillow, like the Vibroacoustic devices. It's the same concept. It's very low frequencies that are going to create movement on the material, on the water. Then we are water. We have water inside.
Yeah, we are like 80% or something like that.
Between 70, 80, 85.
Yeah. It's liquid.
Yes.
So basically these sound waves that you generate with the singing bowls will impact us inevitably, and in a very positive way heals us.
Yeah, I think healing is a process. It's not magic. It's not like, okay, I will put a vibration on my body and I use a singing bowl and I will heal. No. Healing is it's a process, and it's related to the interaction between you, the sound, between you and the others, between you and your therapist. Okay, and we it's very also subjective and individual. It's not the same for everybody. You cannot say that this sound will heal everybody. So I like these kind of questions because in the society it's very popular to talk about sound healing. But what is a sound healing session?
Right. Define first what
Define
healing
first
is.
what
Right?
is a sound healing session?
Yeah. I think to a large degree, and this is where we come back to these particular approaches, to a large degree, it's finding harmony, right? A certain balance in your body, in your place in the physical world, and you can extract it to wider and wider circles. And I think if you are kind of misaligned with yourself, your thoughts, your body, misaligned in how you see just your own being, you're not going to be able to connect well with others around you. And I think the more you're doing a conscious effort to getting to that state, the more harmonious you can be with yourself and then in your life as such. And again, this is not one day to the next, and this is not a process that ends at any point, because the disbalance can happen anytime. So it's not like, okay, I'm healed, checkbox, on to the next one, right? So it's again, it's an effort, and a regular effort, to reestablish a certain harmony inside you.
Exactly, and it's not only about being in harmony with oneself. It's also a relational. There is a relational aspect in harmony. It's also about building a community. People are lonely, yeah, and when you do meditation with others, or when you sing with others, when you breathe with others, and in the same space, you start to build like an organism, and that is more than the individual's needs. Okay, you can be in a sound healing session, and you have a clear intention, for example, about finding a solution on something in my personal life and whatever. But there is also the thing when you go to do something with others, and each one has its own intention, but you can also work with a group intention. Yeah, for example, we are a group of people, and we have this objective. We want to not heal the world, but put energy somewhere, like in a direction. We want to bring a special thing in the schools. So in the sound healing session, you also create a ritual with others to do something, and this is very powerful. The concept of a ritual, and it's not like a shamanism or a magical thing. It's very powerful. For example, if you are with your company, you are all together, and you need to focus on a direction. Like we want to do something for somebody, or for an organization, or for whatever. Or you are starting a new business or something new, and then you are all in. It's not only different members of the team who has his own intention. You have also a group intention. And when this group intention, you create a ritual, you are focusing the energy on something.
I very much appreciate you using the word ritual, because I think rituals are on the decrease in today's society. There are extremely few rituals that people do as a family or as societies. And even a ritual could be a holiday or going to a place of worship, but even on a daily basis or semi-regular basis, like in a company, you say, well, the ritual is that every Monday morning at 9 a.m. we have, it could be a formal thing, but it could be an informal, like a 10-minute stand-up meeting. Then you say, I don't know, three good things that happened to you in the weekend. A micro ritual, something that is regular, something that has a certain scenario to it and creates a sense of belonging and a sense of unity in a group.
Yes, but there is a danger, the automatism.
Okay.
Because if you do like the weekly ritual, it becomes another automatism.
Just another task you have to do.
Yeah. So a ritual with music, with sound, it's much more powerful because you are doing something different. And of course, you are not going to do a sound ritual for a weekly meeting. But, for example, if you achieve something, a goal, a project, let's celebrate it. So you can create a ritual in that moment. And the rituals are where, in this history of humanity, they were always been with music and sound.
And what is that? So what is that place, that idea, that mental state, if you will, that music opens the door to? Can you define it, or is there a way to say, okay, music it not only makes us feel good, I just listen to it, it's great, but music, again, in a therapeutic sense, it can really activate certain things in our minds that would not be possible without it.
I think it's not like a black or white thing. It and there is a lot of different levels. For example, and it's the first time you do a ritual using music. This place will be new for everybody because they are not used to that. But if you are very regularly go to do these different ceremonies, it's like familiar. It's a familiar place, so you can start interacting with this place. It's dynamic. It's not like the same place for everybody, because it depends if you are used to that or not. If you're you're familiar with that. It's something that it can be new, and it's very interesting when it's new, because when you do something that is new, your mind is opened. It's like drugs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like drugs.
Which I wouldn't necessarily say it's a drug in a classic sense.
No, it's not a no.
It's a psychedelic.
It's psychedelic, and it's also a door to this other space that we are talking about.
Yes.
It's very interesting what we are talking about, because we are talking about the irrational and about transcendence. We are talking about things that we don't know, and we are talking about it rationally.
Yeah.
And it's not the same talking about it rationally that being there.
That's our toolkit, right? Like, it's very hard to describe. That's why if you have a psychedelic experience, it's very hard to describe it afterwards, because you may not even have the words for it, or the person listening to it who's never had that kind of experience would not necessarily understand it, because, again, you had an unbelievably rich and very immersive experience, and then describing it, it's a bit like looking at a beautiful scenery through a straw, right? Like that's only the little hole through which you examine it when there is this whole picture out there. So even in a sound healing session, if you really enter that state of consciousness and the deep relaxation and the Theta state, I think you said, it's very hard to afterwards say what it was and what it gave, because it's like, okay, how am I gonna, whatever I describe is already going to be limited and just a small fraction of the overall experience.
Yeah, and you say something that it's related to another question that you already did to me about the goal. What is the goal in a sound therapy session, in a sound healing ceremony? It's not the deep relaxation. The deep relaxation is the starting point. Because if you are in a deep state of relaxation, you can access to this place where we were talking about.
Or this state of awareness.
Totally. That you cannot access if you are not with a calm mind.
Yeah. So basically, this overstimulation, it's an extreme blockage for us from even getting near that place.
I don't know if it is a blockage. The overstimulation is a new reality that the people are, we all are overstimulated all the time. How much time does the normal people open the telephone to see something? Something in the telephone, like the weather or the LinkedIn notifications or the journal or YouTube. How many times a day normal people watch the
Lots,
telephone?
100, 150, huge numbers. Would you say that rituals or methods like sound bath and singing bowls and similar activities, has it become more popular because people are looking for an escape, or not so much escape, looking to get away from it, and they have hard time finding the methods?
I'm not sure that people, they come there because they want again
to come get away from their constant
their constant stimulation.
But
maybe people they don't realize that that this is causing an effect on the intelligence, for example. I think when we are all the time with our telephones, we become more stupid.
In many ways, not just getting wrong information, but also maybe not even having the mental space to process, to digest everything that we've taken in. There
is no digestion. There's always, it's like you are eating all the time. Eating. You need to digest. And yes, a sound healing session, it can be a digestion. Yeah, and also another possibility to put your consciousness in other. You are not okay if you can say, yeah, but I like to travel and I go to the nature and then I disconnect. Yes, okay, it's very good, but you cannot do that all the time. So a sound healing ritual or ceremony, it's 1 hour. It's 1 hour that you are traveling. You are going. You are putting your consciousness elsewhere.
Without any substance, right?
Without any substance.
And
maybe because there are a lot of.
Who knows how people come in through the door? But
I don't know. Yeah,
right. But yes. It's not.
But I really believe that music and sound and vibration has everything you need to enter that state. So you don't need any additional substance.
I once participated, and it doesn't come off the top of my head, but what is the name? It was almost like, it's like a yoga session kind of thing with very special music that kind of built up with intense, triggering intense imagination and putting you in a state of mind. I don't remember what it was called, but I'm just trying to compare it. This is a very different way of using music to trigger your mental work.
Yes, there are a lot of methods that are using similar aspects. For example, rhythm and cathartic methods.
Or skeptical, I would say.
I don't think they are useful. Maybe if you are doing a very focused therapeutic work, it can help. But go somewhere to become cathartic.
Cathartic as in like a breakthrough, overwhelming experience?
Yes. Or you are going to a place and then people are breathing very strongly and people start to cry and and this is catharsis.
Right.
And I don't think it's useful for all the people, for all the moments for everybody. I think if it's a very what I say if it's a therapeutic approach, yes, but you don't need to go and do catharsis like this. So and a sound healing session doesn't work like this. It's very subtle. It's very gentle.
Yeah. And so we talk about singing bowls. I love that expression. It's such a beautiful thing that a ball like this sings. What is to say about it? So you make it sing, and you can make it sing in different ways.
Yeah. So look, if you close your eyes and you hear the sound, you have like different voices. And there is another one that I am not finding right now. So they are like singing at the same time. But when I start to doing this circular movement with my stick,
it changes.
It's doing like an om.
And how do you know? So what is? Do you have a score, or how do you know what to trigger, how to trigger, and what you want to do with it? Or is just the beauty of the different frequencies is what you want to create, or there's actually a concept or a certain narrative that you're trying to induce with these?
You see in the internet the people who talked about the different bowls for different chakras, and for me this is a marketing stuff. I think it's because I have the bowl for the throat chakra, or I have the bowl for the heart chakra, and for me this is kind of a way to sell singing bowls. Like it's very useful if you want to sell and your audience, they don't know about this. You can sell that and say that they need 7 different bowls so they can have the whole chakras. And this is marketing, and it's not good marketing. For me, the singing bowls are musical instruments, very clearly musical instruments, and that you can combine and play, and it's very, very nice and great, very nice experience to disconnect playing the bowls and also listening to the bowls. But it doesn't mean that one bowl will activate certain chakra. There is no evidence at all. There is no scientific paper, nothing that can tell that a singing bowl or a frequency will open certain chakra. So what is interesting for me in the singing bowls is that they are instruments that have many voices, like many tones, and this beating sonority. that I told, like wow, 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 wow.
Sort of pulsation.
These pulsations. These are very interesting, and when you have different singing bowls, you play and you combine these pulsations. So when you are a singing bowl player, you play with these pulsations. You do music with these pulsations, and you create an atmosphere. You create a texture that you can use for relaxation, for example. Or for activating the parasympathetic nervous system, because they are very hypnotic sounds. But there is no evidence at all that there is a sound or a frequency that are going to do something specific. But we know that there are some frequencies that are below 100 hertz, that if you put this frequency in connection with your body will start to feel this vibration, and this is called vibroacoustic therapy.
So we're back to the roots.
Yeah, back to the roots. So in vibroacoustic therapy, there are different frequencies that you are going to use for transferring these sound vibrations to the body. And then in 2008, I wrote my thesis, and I explored different singing bowls, and I explored what are the singing bowls that are the best for a vibroacoustic approach. And the best bowls are those who have a very low frequency, and when you it's very technical. So, but you have to, these very low frequencies that you have here, it has to be very powerful when you excite it. So this frequency in contact and direct contact with the body will create movement inside.
It's crazy, huh? And is it the material, or is it the diameter, or
both.
is it?
There is the material, the diameter.
It's copper, or what is it made of?
Yeah, this is bronze.
Bronze, sorry.
Yeah. Yes. So.
So bronze as a material has that quality, and it has to be shaped and created in a certain way.
Yeah. And what is interesting is it's very popular, the concept of sound massage with the singing bowl, and but with the singing bowls you can transfer some frequencies that are not very low, and for example, a very low frequency singing bowl, the minimum frequency will be like 80 hertz, 80. Yeah. And but you cannot do 40 hertz with a singing bowl. And so what are you going to use for lower frequencies? A device.
Yeah.
And this is
which is able to generate that.
Yeah. So for example, the Viset pillow, that is my creation, it allows you to transfer very lower frequencies, and what is interesting is that you don't need to know how to play a singing bowl. You just put it, and that's it.
Yeah, because if I play through the speakers, even whatever sound that I may be able, well, we are recording this, so the listeners and watchers will hear this, but that doesn't have the same impact as a live exposure to these.
No, because the people who are listening, they're listening by the ears, and the concept of vibration is not the ears, it's the body. But it's not new. When you go to a disco, you feel the lower frequencies, like the woofers and boom, boom, boom. What you see, you feel it inside. Yeah. So
basically, a disco is a vibroacoustic therapy.
Yes.
In some sense.
It's kind of. Vibroacoustic therapy is more like you put the woofer in contact with the body. It was born like that. Ola Schiele in Norway, he was working with cerebral palsy patients, cerebral palsy children, and you know the poof? How do you call this? These chairs that has
poof.
Poof.
The soft chair.
Yeah. So the children, they were like lying on the poof, and he put like woofers in contact with the poof, and putting music which has a lot of very low frequencies. And that's why it started, because he realized that these children that are really with like a spasticity and a very with a lot of tension and in their body, in the articulations, when he started to create this experience of feeling the sound, they were able to
relax.
Yeah, so that's why that's how it started. Then he created other devices, but the concept in vibroacoustic therapy is that you feel the sound inside you.
And what other health advantages or benefits does it have? So certainly a deep state of relaxation and everything we talked about, by itself can start certain healing processes in the body. But is there something that specifically you would say for a certain condition or a certain psychological or physiological issue?
Totally.
This is adaptable.
So one thing that is important to know is that when you are talking about vibroacoustic therapy, it's not the same thing that the sound healing ceremony. These are different things. Okay, vibroacoustic therapy is more like a one-to-one approach, like a client therapist. Yeah. And the benefits of vibroacoustic therapist are studied. So there are a lot of studies. So if you go to PubMed, for example, that is a platform where all the scientific papers, you can see the existence of the different studies in vibroacoustic therapy. And the most, the highlights, like the most important, shows reductions in decreasing of the muscular tone, activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, and the use case, more common use case, is pain relief. For example, fibromyalgia, that is a clinical, it is a chronic pain condition that the science, they don't know how to deal with it. And with vibroacoustic therapy, it has evidence that it has a very powerful effect. And a reversal of pain perception. Yeah, because the thing that you create, parasympathicotony, it helps you to decrease the information of pain. Yeah, that is very sympathetic. The pain response is very sympathetic. You have a lot of PhD theses, doctoral theses about the use of vibroacoustic therapy for pain relief. For example, Elsa Campbell, she's an Irish music therapist, and she has a lot of studies that gives evidence about the benefits of vibroacoustic therapy in pain perception. And another is the stress relief and anxiety problems, and insomnia. See, it's very powerful for sleeping disturbances.
Sounds like it, because I think a large part of sleep issues comes from the brain,
mental activity,
right? Like the brain is too active; it's overstimulated.
Of course. So what is interesting in vibroacoustic therapy is that it's scientifically grounded. It's not like a new age approach.
Yeah.
That is more, so healing is more new age approach. Yeah, but vibroacoustic therapy, it's founded in real studies.
Yeah.
45 years of studies shows evidence of the benefits in human health, also in animals.
I appreciate that spectrum, because it really starts with something very physical or physics-based. It's hertz and Doppler effect and sound and all the rest, and physical engineered devices, and then all the way to the singing bowls and ceremonies and rituals. And of course, everybody will find where they are comfortable or at which point of this resonates with them, to play that pun. But all of this has very positive healing effects. But I wanted to actually ask you, are there risks to it? Or is there can you misuse it, or can it actually do harm if it's not done properly?
Okay, so imagine that the sound has effects on water. Yeah, I have to show you. Can we put water on the
Go ahead.
on the singing bowl? We'll add some water. Okay, this is a vibroacoustic singing bowl. It means that it's a bowl that we are going to use it for transferring vibrations to the body.
Okay.
And this is how I can show you what is the effect of the vibration on water, and then we can talk about other things.
No way. Oh my God. I'm blown away.
Yeah? So the vibration is moving the water.
That's it. I'm sold. That's it. No more proof needed.
This
I mean,
explains
if this is
everything.
what it does inside it, of course, the body,
Because
which
we
is
are
full of liquids.
made of water. We have someone who is pregnant. Okay, so the baby is inside the belly, and what you have inside the belly? Water. And what happens if you transfer sonic energy to the belly?
The water reacts.
It's like the baby is in a jacuzzi.
Okay. And does that make the baby happy?
I don't know if it's going to be happy, but he's at I think 3 or 4 months, he starts to hear, and it's very sensitive. And what happens if you hear a sound with very powerful sound? You can have problems later.
So basically, you're saying is this is a clear counterindication for pregnant women.
Never
to this
put
kind of effect.
vibration to a belly, because it's very powerful. It's not like a gentle vibration, but no, it moves. It moves the energy, it moves the matter, it moves the water inside. So if you have a baby inside, and you put you do stimulation, you can hurt the baby. So people say, but I heard that there was sound healing sessions for pregnant women. So they are doing bad? No, they are not doing bad. But don't use the vibroacoustic approach. Don't use the vibration on the belly. You can create an atmosphere with singing bowls and working with the boys, and you can work with put the mother in an altered state of consciousness to start connecting with the baby. Create connections, but you don't need to stimulate the baby. You don't need to stimulate the baby. Yeah. But you can help the mother to connect with the baby.
I mean, it certainly will do good to the baby if the mom is calm and not full of anxiety.
Yes.
And that certainly is going to translate in a positive way. But
totally.
This, I think, is an important part that, like with everything in life, it's not a pure positive. Obviously, it has very positive effects if done right and if used in the appropriate way.
Yeah. So another situation. You have an accident. You break your leg. And then what happens? I want to heal my leg, so I will put vibration on my leg. No, it's broken. You have a lot of inflammation. It's not the moment to put vibration. So it's very like a common sense. But we need common sense in life. Huh? Then another situation, psychiatric clients, like schizophrenia. This feeling that you were, I put the ball some minutes ago here, and you felt the vibration. It was very pleasant. But it can be very intrusive for some people. So you are not going to put vibration on psychiatric patients. I'm talking about schizophrenia. This is another situation that is not positive. Another situation, and this is people who has with the pacemakers.
Probably not a good idea.
Not a good idea. And then you don't have, in all the bibliography, in all the research, there is not evidence of something that you say, oh, don't do that with this.
That I understand. What I also want to come back to is, are there certain frequencies or maybe the intensity or the duration of the exposure to certain of these sounds? Can it be too much? Can it actually backfire that you got too exposed
Yes.
to it?
Many people think that they need to be stimulated and they need to have more vibration. The more is the better. And this is wrong. The less is the better.
Okay.
I like this sentence, less is more. So, for example, any frequency you use, never use it with a lot of intensity. So with a pillow, for example, it's very easy because you have your telephone and you can use it for yourself. You don't need a therapist to use the Visit pillow. You can use it for yourself, for sleep, for whatever. And then you don't put it with a lot of intensity, because less is more, is better. And there are different frequencies that are studied. That Olaf Schiele, he studied 5 different frequencies that are 40, 50, 52, 68, 86. So this is the 5
hertz, right? Like that.
Hertz, yes, basic frequencies. And each one of the frequencies are felt in different parts of the body. So, for example, the higher the frequencies is like
like small
muscles.
Small muscles.
And 40 hertz, the lower the frequencies, it will create resonance in
abdomen.
Abdomen, for example.
Right, that I have a lot of. Yes. I'll get a big exposure for that.
Yes, and then there's, for example, 52 hertz. It's used for menstrual pain. Yeah, and 50 is for he realized that most of the people that were exposed to 50 hertz, that was very beneficial for back pain. Yes, and but what is interesting is that the sequence of programs I craft my own programs, and I have a combination of different frequencies. So I start, for example, I always start with 40 hertz. And then for insomnia, a program for insomnia, I'm going to use 40. I'm going to use 35. I'm going to use 45. And then I will come back to 35. And I will finish with 40.
So that's your cocktail.
This is a cocktail.
Jorge's insomnia recipe.
Yes.
And you experimented with this and came up with the formula.
Yes, I experimented with me.
Okay.
I am my own.
I see. And it works?
Yes.
Okay. You have a good sleep.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, I don't have a big insomnia. I wake up very early in the morning. For example, I'm those.
But that's because you're still on Argentinian time, you know?
No. No, it's because I have a lot of activity, of mental activity. I am a creator.
So your brain is always...
It's always creating.
Thinking.
Always creating. So I started to crafting these programs for myself, and they work for me.
Yeah. And by the way, that reminds me, how much can you use it for yourself? So do you need to go to a specialist or a session or a ritual to get exposed, or you basically buy the singing bowls and you do it for yourself?
Yeah, the problem with the singing bowls, it's not a problem, but it's you need to learn how to play it. It's not difficult, but you can use it for your own meditation, for example.
Right.
But you are not going to use the singing bowl for creating a vibroacoustic stimulation with yourself, because it's very difficult to put a bowl inside and do the work with the stick. So the devices are the good solution for that. If you want to use to benefit with the frequencies, you will use the device, because you only need an app. You choose your program. You can read the program. What is this for? Then you press play, and you have the pillow, and it does the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and anybody can use it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to go back a little bit to your studies. I'm really interested to hear what you studied as music therapy. So what sort of classes did you have, or what sort of approaches or disciplines are integrated into music therapy?
Yeah, so in Argentina, music therapy is a full program. Yeah, it's
You said 5 years of studies.
between 3 and 5 years, depending on the university.
Yeah.
And I studied in the University of Buenos Aires, Universidad de Buenos Aires. And the University of Buenos Aires is very psychoanalytical approaches. They are very Freud and Lacan. So I was quite disappointed in my training because I wanted to learn about frequencies and vibration and the physical effect of sound. And I was reading Freud and Lacan in almost all the
5 years. Okay.
Yes. So but this was very interesting because that made me go to find the methodology that was good for me.
But you must have had, I don't know, music classes. Or
yeah, of course. Yeah,
like
a lot of musical classes. You learn how to work with groups, how to use rhythm, percussion, to have like 30 people playing drums together.
Which instrument do you play? I know you play drum.
Yeah, in music therapy, we are trained to be a multi-instrumentist, but not with the objective of expressing to music.
Yeah.
But we were going to use the musical instruments for creating relations between people with the instruments.
Right.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. People are sometimes afraid to instruments because they think it's very technical, and they remember when they were at school playing the flute, and it was 7 a.m. playing the flute. It was bothering and a lot of noise, and yeah, in music therapy we encourage people to explore the instruments. Yeah. And this is something that is related to my own story. When I was a kid, I remember when I was entering in a house, like a friend or whatever, the first thing that I was looking for, what was?
The instrument.
Is there an instrument here? And I was very surprised that there were houses without instruments. How can you live without a musical instrument? It's so pleasant to create an atmosphere, to disconnect, to put your awareness on the music, to express yourself in music. And what is interesting in music therapy is that you learn to use very easy tools, easy musical tools, and make it available for the others. And
well, this is not a very complex object.
Not at all. It's very easy. Right. So there are a lot of instruments that they doesn't require technical skills, just a little bit, but nothing. Right. For example, there are flutes, the Native American flutes, that are really interesting because they have 5 holes or 6, and you just do. And the sound is really interesting, and you learn how to breathe. You can learn how to breathe with a musical instrument. Yeah. Okay, and then of course you can play another instrument that are more complex, but it's not the goal of music therapy to teach you how to learn how to play an instrument. I am not a musical teacher. Yeah. I am a music facilitator, and depending on different approaches. If it's a one-to-one, I will use, for example, vibroacoustic therapy, or if it is a group, I will use sound healing, rituals, rhythm.
What I appreciate there is instrument is part of the overall package, but the group dynamics, understanding what you are aiming to get out of with that person, or rather with that group, and the way you conduct the ceremony is just as important as any individual instrument.
Exactly. Exactly, because it's not only about the power of music or the power of sound. It's also about the power of relationships. Because human, we like to be together. We like to share. We like to share things. And the problem now is that we have the AI, and this is very good for the development of the humanity, but it's very dangerous because it will create loneliness. Most of the companies that are researching in robotics, and the solution is that there will be no loneliness anymore. This is very dangerous. No, I don't know what you think about it.
I agree with you.
Because it can help people who are lonely, but can it be positive for the people to then connect with other humans? Because they will be used to a type of connection that the AI is very always, for the AI, you are always wonderful. So for the ego, it's very, very nice to be with an AI. But humans, we are different. We have another dynamics. So human relationships, real relationships, are very important today. We cannot leave this human tribe be dead by the machines.
I agree with you. And especially not just one-on-one relationships, which are essential. I understand that those who are really lonely and have no such access or no access to such relationships, a machine can kind of substitute a bit. But groups or experiences and real human rituals, you cannot substitute it with machines. And there's an enormous inherent value in that shared experience that you are creating through these events and through these rituals, and facilitated and enhanced by music. So I think those have such an important place in our life, and it really gives so much, aside from the actual vibrations and the sounds, but the shared experience has a tremendous value.
And there is a physical phenomena, a physical concept that is related to that. It's the concept of entrainment. The entrainment is the synchronicity that happens between different rhythmical processes. So you put in YouTube, you put entrainment, synchronicity, metronomes. And you will see this experience where you have different metronomes. Each one is in different rhythm and in different phase. And then they put it in a specific bass. And after some moments of incertitude, in a moment they start to tuck, tuck,
Yes.
tuck, tuck, all at the same time are vibrating exactly in the same phase.
Yes.
So this is a physical phenomenon that has a correlation in groups, and you can see it, for example, in the ocean. When there are a lot of fishes of the same species, they move together,
right,
and they don't crush.
Yes.
It's like a dance.
It's like one unit.
One unit, and you see it also on the birds. You have these groups of birds that are creating figures in the landscape. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is called entrainment. It's this synchronicity between different rhythms that they synchronize each other and they enter in a phase.
Yeah.
And in human relations, this is also exists. So this thing you cannot create. It's not with a machine, because the machine is rigid. And this flow of the relationships, we cannot lose this.
Yeah, I think it's so organic and so biological, and so again, it goes beyond biological, because there's a certain unconscious synchronicity running in the back, which you may not even be aware of, but it still happens, and you can facilitate that through a certain ritual or through a certain method. The group will align with each other far better. And again, you can even translate that to the corporate world and say you have a retreat or you just have even a meeting for that matter. You do want to align the different participants fairly early on so they synchronize that they are in the same mindset and wavelength.
Exactly, but you need harmony. If you have to be a flexible structure, a flexible organism. If there is somebody who is very rigid and the things are done as I say, and this kind of mass,
very stiff.
Yeah, it will not synchronize. It will create conflict.
Yeah, a blockage.
Yes.
Which again translates to maybe a sound bath kind of place, where even if physically you put there an object which is rigid, right? Like it can block those energies. It can block the flow over there. But even a person, if you go or look at it with a rigid mindset, saying, "Oh, I'm not open to this. I don't want to explore this. I'm not coming here with a learning mindset," that can also block the flow.
Totally.
What do you do with that? So if someone maybe comes to a ceremony that you do and they were sent by their spouse and say, go try this, will be good for you, but they don't really go there with that mindset.
Yeah, in corporations there are always somebody who doesn't want to see that. But then you can trust also the energy of the group. What does the group want?
And they can ease the person into it.
Yes.
You do this sort of ceremony with corporate clients?
I did some. Yes, I did some.
Interesting.
And I'm very interested in working with gongs. I have friends in Argentina who they work in corporations with percussion, with drums. So this is very interesting because you have all the company and everybody has a drum, and so they start to do a rhythm together, and this is very interesting. But I want to explore the use of gongs.
Yes. I mean, I don't think I disclose here anything sensitive, that in your home you have this unbelievable, beautiful as an object, but even the sound, the vibration it does, a gong. And wow, what a power it has.
Yeah, but it's not about just close your eyes and listen to the gong. You need to prepare the mind for that. And the gong is very interesting because it's not familiar. It's not a familiar sound.
It's kind of familiar from movies, right? Like you have these big moments.
In the movies you have the gong percussion,
whoa,
like boing.
Right, and something big is going to happen.
And it's in the imagination of everyone that gong is like that. It's like to have the big stick and the big mallet and hit the gong like a crazy.
Or like a Carmina Burana, the big gong.
But in sound healing, in sound therapy, we don't use the gong like this. We hit the gong like very slowly, and we start exciting the different frequencies in the gong. So it creates a sound atmosphere that is very similar to the sounds of the universe. And so it's very interesting, the kind of images that the gong experience creates. It's an experience that is related to the cosmic experience. Like people, they talk about having the sensation of floating in the cosmos, or being being in the middle of the universe, and it's very very interesting. Yes, I would really like to explore this in corporations. But for specific moments, like for example, for starting a retreat or closing a retreat, having this experience of losing the control, and start
the fears.
Yes, and start connecting with trust. It's very interesting. I think this is something that I must do for me.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to conclude as we get towards the end of our conversation of how this even ties into trust, right? Like, which is such a deep concept, but the trust with you let go of those mental barriers, and you say, okay, what is my mind going to bring up? Or I trust my intuition, and we spoke about that earlier, how you can find that clarity, which ultimately depends on trust. Like, I trust myself that I'm going to be able to find a way forward.
We'll find a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, when a team is blocked, for example, there's something that is blocking the creativity or blocking the process. There are a lot of cases like this where music experiences can do a lot.
With those words, we have our little ritual with cards, and like I always say, everybody pulls a card that's most relevant to them. So let's see.
I have to choose like whatever.
Yes, just pick one, and it will be the right one. Okay, if you could read it out.
What would you like to tell someone who is no longer alive? Oh my God. But yes, if it's something, for example, very familiar to me, that somebody I really love, and I feel the presence of that person every day of my life, I am doing this effort of living each minute of my life as it was the last minute of my life. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sir, muchas gracias.
Gracias a ti, Andras.